So, hi Gaurang, thank you so
Hi.
much for agreeing to do this.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. So, the thing is, as you know, as you've spoken to Mr. Bala before, these interviews and interactions that we're doing are part of this project that we call the Beautiful Mind.
Okay.
The whole idea of Beautiful Mind is to raise awareness towards mental health issues like sexuality, relationships, addiction, and anything that is commonly considered a taboo subject.
Right.
Okay, and the vision is to create a bigger community, which we like to call an inspired community, and it's called the League of Action Heroes.
Okay.
So the more people are aware, the more equipped they are to take any action. That is what we believe.
Good to
So just for those of you who are watching us, I have with me Mr. Gaurang Chandana, and why we are having this chat today is because he can give us some really interesting accounts and some untold stories of being a drug addict and currently being a recovering addict. So, Mr. Gaurav, the why I'd like to thank you for coming today is it's very hard for people to talk about this journey in particular.
Yep.
You know, even though they are recovering, even though they have overcome it to some extent, they are unwilling to talk about it because of the taboo and all the misjudgment that goes along with it.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much. And my first question to you is, why did you agree to come on this show?
Okay. So there is a different reason to it actually. Went through this whole cycle of addiction and in and out, and sometimes you're completely clean, and sometimes you relapse, and all of that. And then it was, of course, I'm single, but I live with parents. It was taking a toll on all of us, big time. Especially my parents were really old,
Right.
and even though they are physically fine, they are in a sense dependent, right, because of their age.
Hmm.
And we thought, it's high time you get out of it, and variety of factors, and we pulled through. And
Right.
I was the one who actually told them, because it's very difficult if you're a little smart, you can mask it for very long, which I did.
Hmm.
And one fine day things went overboard, and I went and told them, look, this is what is happening with me, and I will need your help. That's all. That was the journey, and from then on, I went and spoke to a few close friends. And after all of this, I kind of started penning down, interacting with people. I've done these interviews before with
Hmm.
on other forums. And my parents, in fact, told me and encouraged me that what you've gone through, no parent should go through. So
Right.
you should come out and talk and speak. The damage you're doing, forget to yourself,
Hmm. Hmm.
because when you're not in your senses, you don't care about yourself.
Right.
But the damage you do to your loved ones is so much more important. And he said, just go out and talk. If there is any repercussion, we'll handle it. So that is how the whole thing started.
So tell us a little bit give us a quick background about how you got introduced to drugs and why you started and how it started to become an addiction.
Okay, so for me, it was something very simple. I was a little unoccupied at that time. I was between work. I had given up my job. I didn't know what to do next. I done a few courses here and there. You know how it is. And when you have to spend 5, 6, 8 months, 1 year, and then you're looking for something,
Hmm.
then obviously today it's easy to find it if you want it, right?
Right.
And at the back of the mind, it's always there with everyone. Okay, let's try it. You
Hmm.
know, even of course I knew that it's bad. I've heard it's bad, but then how bad can it be? If millions of people are doing it
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
we are fine, then what's wrong? And they say,
Correct.
okay, let's try it. So you just try it, and then you try some more, and you try some more, and that's it. Okay, and then you're in trouble eventually.
So like you said, one very common reason for people getting introduced to drugs is the curiosity, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's some curiosity behind it. Everybody wants to experience that high. So if you had to speak to a youngster today who has this sort of at the back of his mind that maybe next party I'm going to try, or next time I'm going out I'm going to try, what would that one thing be that you would say to him or her?
I will say only one thing. They're all extremely smart these days, much more than we were, or I
Hmm.
was at my age, for sure. Anything which is extremely good, okay, in terms of certain kinds of pleasures, short term or long term, has an equally bad negative reaction in 100% of the cases. And
Right.
you have to face both. You can't say, I will not take this and take only that. That does not happen with drugs.
Hmm.
So I will be lying if I said I did not have fun for a certain time, which I did. but the repercussions are so terrible. Then I have to take a call. Do I want to destroy myself for those momentary highs, whether it's 2 hours or 2 days or whatever it is, or say, okay, I don't need it because there's so many other things in life to do.
Right. So that, even in your book that you shared with us, I have you have these small little things where you talk about, you fly, or there's a good high with it. There is all these things. Do you think that there are certain people who are possibly more prone to becoming or they have a higher chance of becoming an addict compared to others, or is that a myth?
No, that is not a myth. There are two scientific reasons which have now been discovered, and more research is going on in those areas. Those people who are generally more introverted, intelligent, and extremely sensitive by nature are the ones who tend to pick up drugs more. Because a lot of things, especially when you're in your teens, you can't relate. You're learning something and you say, what is this world about? And this is happening and people are dying and no one understands me.
Correct.
You may actually be intelligent and you come 10th in your class, even though you've done some fantastic project, and there is partiality. So there are a lot of injustices, so-called, which you think are there across.
Correct.
And this happens in your early teens. All of us have gone through that, right? And what is happening, why it's happening, and that drives you to look for solutions and answers. And then people explore yoga and people explore many things. And one of these things is, of course, what drug does is it's escapism also to a large extent. It takes you away from your problems. The problems don't disappear. Your perception of the problems go away. Let me put it that way. And therefore, this is the segment which you need to watch out for. And the other one is there is a genetic marker which has been found now. So it's like a trigger for a disease, and it works for all kind of addictions. So if those triggers are there, now they are trying to find out what could those triggers be. Okay, so if someone has that kind of a gene marker and they are made aware, and then that there is a trigger, maybe hopefully a lot less number of people will get into it.
Right. So tell me a little bit about your first high. Your first high, and do you even remember what it felt like? Can you take us through that experience?
It was crazy. Completely crazy. I cannot guess. Okay, so I'll just try to draw a parallel. Okay, let's say, let me counter question you. You've gone abroad anywhere?
Yes, I have.
Where? The best place which you loved?
I love Sydney. Sydney is my favorite.
Sydney. What do you love about Sydney?
I don't know, it just felt like home. Actually, I went there to sort of practice dance. I made a lot of friends. So that's what I loved about the place.
Okay. So try and convince me that it's the best place on earth to be in, or the best holiday destination.
It's probably not the best holiday destination, but for me personally, it's the best place to be because my friends are there, my dance mentors are there. Then somehow it feels very close to home. It feels very similar to home for some reason. So on a person, I can't convince somebody else saying that, you have to go see Sydney because it's not a tourist destination. The beautiful beaches and all that, of course. But the weather, the pace of the city, the kind of food that you get, the cultures that are there, there's a lot to explore for sure.
So why I brought this out is I can't relate now.
Correct.
But I'm already curious.
Right.
My next holiday, why not Sydney? But I can't place it. Why is she saying Sydney when there are like million destinations, right? Already this process has started of curiosity. Also try and explain to someone who's never been. Have you been to, do you know there are light pink roses, which are very unique to Rajasthan?
Okay, I didn't know what this.
Which bloom only in certain parts of the winter, so during certain times of the winter.
Right.
And in desert area. Surprisingly. There is a very small patch over there. I've been there. Just stand over there. Almost white, light pink roses. They are supposed to be the most fragrant on earth. And you're just standing there. And I was just standing there and we sat there. I'd gone with my parents and a couple of other friends. And finally, after 2 hours, someone just tapped me and says, what are you doing? He said, you're just sitting and staring.
Okay.
And smelling, obviously. I was just gone. Now, someone asked me, what was so good about it? What does the smell like? What is the smell of the most beautiful rose on earth? How does the most beautiful rose garden look like? Can you ever describe it? Anyone?
Well, on a personal level, possibly, but I don't know if you can.
No, you can't. You can't. There is no way. You can't articulate. So all you have to say, you have to experience it. So when people ask me, "Lekin itna kya tha?" I said, "You go and see."
Huh.
That is what it is. So
Right.
I have a very different way of putting it. Of course, there may be younger audiences right now, so I will leave aside certain parts of what how it. Pick up your best holiday destination ever. Your holiday you've taken. Pick up your best experience of life ever. Okay, if you're married, your first love, your best food you ever tasted in your life. Multiply all of this, add all of this, and multiply it by 1,000 or 5,000, and that is the experience you get. Okay,
Wow.
so I am not. So can you? There's nothing. There is no description to it or explanation.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not trying to promote these, but that is what makes it very attractive to younger people.
Okay. And how old were you when you tried your first drug? The
Sorry,
first, how?
I was, I think, early 40s, late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
During,
So, through our research and through through the interactions that you've had over these years, there's one constant thing that we have heard that you're more likely to become an addict if you try a drug when you're younger than 21 years of age. Do you think that is true or not?
there are, yeah, it is true. It
Mm-hmm.
is very majorly true,
Hmm.
but the dynamics are shifting now.
Okay.
Okay, in a very, very large way and very rapidly, which very few people know.
Hmm.
Okay. So what is happening now is youngsters are actually getting more serious than adults
Hmm.
about their career, about their work, about their jobs. Not just middle class, so to speak, but even low classes when you even go to municipal schools and all that.
Hmm.
Okay, so there is certain stress and pressure level happening there. But what is also happening is there are other segments who are
Right.
getting stressed or bored or irritated. So you'll be surprised. One of the fastest growing segments are married couples,
Okay.
okay, who want to party together,
Okay.
rekindle their marriage life, and the kids are pretty much on the way. 14, 15 times, so they don't need care, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is, I'm talking India now, right? And I'm
Hmm.
talking even tier two cities India.
Hmm.
I'm not talking Bangalore, Mumbai.
Right.
This is happening. And if you get into addiction much earlier, below 21, you get out of it much faster. That is the second part which you need to consider.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, because then you are on your way, your life will start, your career will start. But if you get in later, I feel it's more difficult to get out because you have that income to support you to a very
Hmm.
large extent.
Hmm.
Youngsters will still have, you're dependent on maybe odd jobs on your parents or pocket money.
Hmm.
How far will you go with
Right.
that? And sooner or later, you will have to go to college or do something, or make a girlfriend or have a boyfriend,
Right.
and it's over. So I have come across a lot of youngsters,
Mm-hmm.
13, 14, 15. They typically are at it for 2, 3, 4 years and out.
Okay. Now, there's another parallel to your life where you came out and told the world that you're gay.
Yeah.
Now, did the fact that you were gay or the fact that you were not able to talk about it, was that a contributing factor to your addiction?
Uh, I'm really not sure about that
Okay.
because I've been battling it. I knew what I am, but I was battling about coming out for very long. Right?
Right.
When one comes out at my age, I mean, when you're 30s or 40s, correct?
Right.
But then I thought it's high time. I handled all those marriage pressures and everything. So that phase was past. There was
Hmm.
no need for me, but I thought I'll be a little more comfortable if I don't hide things about myself. I think hiding things
Hmm. Hmm.
about yourself because someone thinks it is bad or should
Hmm.
not be done was probably what was impacting me a lot.
Okay.
Okay, so if a job goes, oh, you're not a success. If I did start a couple of my own ventures which didn't do well, right?
Hmm.
So people tell you, oh, you're a failure. So hide.
Hmm.
So all that is kind of building up. So one thing I would definitely tell people just in our terms, just be bindas. Yeah, whatever you are, you are. It,
Right.
it doesn't matter. It's not about sexuality at all. There are many other things. Right?
So, when do you define? When do you say that the person is okay? This person is an addict. When do you say that one person is an addict?
If you go in for any kind of synthetic drugs or designer drugs, what we call, or recreational drugs, which are chemically produced,
Hmm.
uh, typically,
Mm-hmm.
if you take it the second time,
Okay.
you're an addict.
Okay.
That's it. There is nothing more. I mean, very hard, very honest. And anyone thinks that no, it can't happen with me. You know, these are weak-minded people. I can challenge anything I have right now. So
In your book, what I find most interesting is that you talk about a lot of new kinds of drugs that are coming into the market
yeah,
on a regular basis,
yeah.
and there's a lot of experimentation that's happening with drugs. So can you take us through a few types of drugs and what each of them does to a person? What are the kinds of drugs, or how do you classify them?
So there are multiple ways to classify them. One is by the chemical composition. One is whether they are plant-based or non-plant-based. So you have marijuana, cannabis, or your charas, bhang, ganja, and all of that, what we call a rafine or opium. These are plant-based. Plant-based ones are easier to get out of
Hmm.
comparatively. It is more like maybe tobacco smoking or drinking on a regular basis. If you want to, you can kind of stop it. Okay. Then there are the synthetic ones.
Hmm.
In the synthetic ones, you have heroin-based. There are antiphines, methamphetamines, and there are ketamines, which are the latest ones. So ketamine is a kind of drug which is actually used in very small quantities for depression patients.
Okay.
Okay, so once people got to know that this is the impact,
Hmm.
and then it went in the underground market. Okay, so you may feel very happy for 2 days. You know, you take that, you're like, not
Right.
high, but you're like, oh, everything is fine and cloud nine happening with you. The world is a beautiful place, kind of a thing. So you have ketamines. You have certain kind of street drugs, which taken in very small quantities, help you to stay awake longer and temporarily increase your absorption power. So if you are into studies and engineering and all, and you have to stay awake 2 3 days before an exam, people take that, okay, because it helps you. But then, of course, you don't know when to stop. So if it keeps increasing, you are in trouble. Uh,
Right.
so you have these 6 7 large categories which are different molecules altogether, and then you have variations coming in.
Hmm.
Which are there. And of course, you have cocaine, which is made out of the coca plant, which is like all over the place.
Okay. So, for any youngster who's watching, okay, one thing that they do not understand is the long-term repercussions of drugs. They only talk. Mostly, people talk about health issues, or there's a possible chance of overdose and all of that. Besides that, what are the other risks that they're putting at themselves at when they're experimenting with drugs, or possibly even just they want to try, they want to have fun? What risks are they putting themselves at?
Okay, so first most important risk, which is long term,
Hmm.
which very few people know. So you'll find changes when you go on an X-ray or an MRI. Your prefrontal cortex, your hypothalamus, and all that, certain parts disappear and something else grows somewhere. Your brain is getting rewired in, and you don't know in what way.
Right.
Okay, so what part of you gets impacted? And if you continue long term, you don't know. Okay, you're either you could start having mood swings, or you could start having superlative memory but zero social skills. All those swings starts happening
Right.
because your brain is getting chemically altered, and that takes 4 to 5 years to get back after you stop using completely. It doesn't go away. That's one. Second one is that has been found long-term usage is linked to two major problems: schizophrenia and clinical depression. So induced schizophrenia, and it's really crazy. I've been through it, and that was what kind of woke me up because I don't know what could have happened. And one is clinical depression, because when you're used to a lovely high, let's say 2 years, 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can't always be high, right? It's not possible. The body can
Right.
take, so you'll have gaps.
Right.
Whenever you have those gaps, you go into clinical depression
Hmm.
and you become suicidal, and that is when you hear all the most of the suicide cases happen. Okay, so you're becoming suicidal, you're becoming antisocial,
Hmm.
you don't care about your personal well-being. Okay, you start disliking everything else around you gradually. You just become withdrawn, lock
Hmm.
yourself in a room,
Hmm.
just go out alone for walks, and that's the only things you're going to be doing. And if it increases more and more, people will cut off from you. How long do you want to say no, poor person is in trouble, let's help it? Beyond a point, you say chuck it. you know so
Right.
that so social withdrawal, mental issues, suicidal tendencies, and behavioral long-term behavioral changes. which can impact your career, life, and interpersonal relationships. And these have been found to happen even 8, 10, 12 years down the line. It's not something which is, yeah. So,
Do you think that somewhere people who are addicted to a certain drug, this is because I'm talking from an excerpt from your book where you talk about this incident where your hands were tied and then you were taken out of your home in the middle of the night, and then you go to this five-star hotel and you do a line and then you feel good about yourself. So are people going, other than the high, do people actually feel better about themselves when they're doing certain drugs?
uh, you always feel extremely good about yourself when you're doing drugs.
Okay.
Okay? Because then it's only about you and the set of people at that time who are with you, who are also obviously going to be high. So there is, that means you're all fine. There is no judgment. There is no, your own inhibitions
Right.
or things which you think are bad,
Hmm.
but you want to do and are feeling guilty, whatever it
Right.
could. That barrier breaks, and therefore, uh, it is another one attractive reason.
In our films especially, there's a lot of films that are based on the film industry or the fashion industry, and these kind of films that come out, there is a very I don't know why this connection is there, but they normally would show a gay character as also being a drug addict. This is a
Yep.
very common portrait. Is there any connection uh, between the LGBTQ community and consumption of drugs? Is there any connection?
Zero. Zero. So it's one of those, again, unverified, unresearched,
Hmm.
biased stereotypes, right? So gays have to be portrayed as effeminate. That's what you see in the
Right.
movies.
Right.
Now
Right.
that part is also, now they have to be drug addicts.
Correct.
Uh, so that all is completely incorrect. Okay, if it were only LGBTQ globally who are taking drugs,
Hmm.
no one would be doing the drug business because it's so small.
Right.
Yeah, India alone is set to enter the big league now very soon.
Right.
With last estimate saying India will cross $4-5 billion a year worth of drugs turnover in
Wow.
pharma.
Right. Why is it so much easier to get drugs these days?
It was it is always easy. It was always easy for someone who wants it. It's easy. If you're seeking for it, you'll find it everywhere. So tougher. Okay, it's easier because also it's become big business. More well organized now than they were. There are distribution channels. There are areas mapped out. Certain people operate in certain areas. Certain kind of drugs have a certain different distribution channel. All of that.
Right.
Needless to say, in places like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, and some of the other cities in India, uh,
Mm-hmm.
anything you want
Mm-hmm.
within 2 kilometers roughly of your existing current location, wherever you are, within 1 hour,
Right.
someone will come and deliver whatever you want. That's how it's structured. You can imagine it runs like an FMCG operation.
Wow. Okay.
So
And
yeah, easy.
and even with youngsters, I mean, I think today for them everything is on the phone, on the you can just get it, you can just talk to people over your phone,
Absolutely.
nobody's going to find out, right? So there's one thing that is very common, I think especially in India, where there is a lot of denial amongst
Yeah.
parents. Now suppose somebody says, मैंने तुम्हारे बेटे को वहाँ पे smoke करते हुए देखा, the parent will say, my son never, they will no chance he or she will smoke. Tell us what part that plays in in putting a person through this addiction, or does it does it make it easier for somebody to become an addict? Is that what is the role that parents denial plays?
Parents denial plays a very large role, and I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say just parents denial, but communication channels with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, cultured, nice families where parents love children and vice versa, there is always this kind of communication gap which is there.
Hmm.
Some things are not to be spoken about, or
Hmm.
all of that. And a lot
Hmm.
of times even parents know, but don't bring it up. They'll come
Correct.
out, or they'll manage. So I think the communication channel is more important rather than the denial part.
Hmm.
This my parents told me. Like even when I told my friends, some of them still don't believe that I was doing this. Then when I was lying, okay, it's like it can't be you. Like I'm that complete no drugs kind of a profile, right? When you want to map it down,
Correct.
and even in many aspects of my life and social and people, when I was growing up, when I was in my teens, people used to consider me a model, kind of a thing.
Right.
So, but yeah, if communication channels are open, so eventually I did communicate, right?
Hmm.
So denial is more than denial. I think parents need to be aware that this is all over the place. It's increasing rapidly, and it
Right.
is no longer about your kid, whatever
Hmm.
the age, about them being good or bad.
Hmm.
Most of the times you'll get into it without realizing you're getting into it.
Right.
Sometimes it's a gradual process. You'll
Hmm.
have a smoke, and then you'll have a couple of drinks, and then 6 months down the line, someone slips in some powder. You know how it is.
Right. Right.
Today there are organized rackets which are happening in a very big way in Hyderabad. They are outside senior school and now middle school. In middle income areas, you have fruit vendors who just brush some of this drug on the fruits and give. So you think you're having fruit, you're having it. And then every time you want to go to the same fruit wala and you have fruit. Like it
Oh,
happens in so many places in Bangalore, Mumbai. You can only eat pan at a certain pan wala. यानी इसका पान नहीं खाते हो मजा नहीं आता है.
correct.
All this is there. So a lot of it is being pushed to you.
Right.
But if you are denying, then it does not help. And parents have, since I've started doing these kind of sessions and talks, parents are coming up to me and saying, I suspect he or she is having drugs. How should I bring up the topic with them? Or what should I do? Stuff like that. And that's very encouraging.
And what are some signs that parents should watch out for? Parents or peers. Now, if another great channel to stop somebody from possibly becoming an addict is if my friend, I notice that she's possibly doing drugs, my talk with her might be a little more open, you know. So, what should
Yeah.
friends or parents look for? What are the
Okay,
signs?
so there are not too many signs initially.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, there won't be too many signs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the initial signs, let's say for a year or someone is doing, are actually positive. Okay,
Hmm.
because it's just building into you. The ill effects have not yet kicked in, which
Hmm.
will come much later.
Hmm.
Okay, so you are much more confident. You talk and speak better.
Hmm.
You lose weight. You actually become much fitter.
Hmm.
Right, a lot of people start because of that. Also, one of the reasons. Uh, your dressing or clothes sense changes.
Hmm.
Okay, so you start getting little bit out of character,
Hmm.
and it's subtle. But if you know a person well, and as you rightly said, peers would know all this more than parents. And
Right.
you can make that what suddenly happened to this person, and all of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And suddenly you become slimmer if you're a girl, and you're talking better, smarter. Your clothes changes when you go shopping and all of that. And oh
Right.
wow, something is happening now. It could be wow also because she's in love, but
Huh.
it could be
It's good to watch out for these signs, basically,
good to
right?
watch out any change
Right.
from your normal pattern,
Hmm.
and which is goes on for a certain length of time. I'm not talking about short-term stress for a month and all. But
Right.
if it goes on for 5-6 months, if
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
has changed, that is what you need to look for.
So I want to go into a few of your personal experiences because you've been very open about them in your book. So tell me, what were the positive personality changes that you noticed when you started doing drugs?
What changes? Sorry.
What were the positive like you talk about, there's
Okay.
some good things that happen as well, like you start dressing better, you become more confident. What were some good things that you noticed about yourself which you said, oh, I'm doing this, so I'm becoming like this, and it's a good thing?
I actually became extremely fit. I was always fit, okay, but always a little bit of fat is always there, and I wanted to look like lean and toned and all of that, and I did become because I got much more energy, more stamina.
Hmm.
You're doing this, your appetite goes down. So you have a double whammy. Appetite goes down and you're jogging like 1 hour every day
Right.
and very active. Then obviously, a certain this thing happens, right? So, that's one part of it. The second part is there's a whole lot of inhibitions go away on different areas. It's not just about sex, okay? And then you're more comfortable with yourself,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And saying, okay, fine. and in a good way, in a positive way, not in a negative way. That's the other big change I found out myself. Third is you become a little more accepting about other people. At the
Right.
back of your mind, I know I'm doing something I'm not supposed to do. Eventually, right? We all know that.
Right.
So what happened was, and my friends told me, and which I did, it's been striking. You stop criticizing, cribbing, being judgmental about others. ये तो ऐसी है कैसे कपड़े पहनती है मोटी है या मोटा है और look at him and what attitude and they're like who am I I'm doing and drugs and
Right.
hiding it. And it's now become almost part of my nature. I don't really, if someone has done something crazy, like we're fine. For all I know, if someone wants to streak on the roads, I won't bat an eyelid now.
And take us through one incident that has had the most negative impact on your mind, as in this is the most horrific thing that happened to you because
Many
of drugs.
big things have happened. I got caught by cops. Uh, Once, no, so I'll tell you what. Someone challenged me. I was high. At midnight I jumped in a nala.
Okay.
I didn't know how to swim well. So I was pulled out and thrashed by people and put in the police station for a night. I woke up. I didn't woke up, but I got into my senses. But once I'm in my senses, I can speak, talk, right? So, and I went out without any complaint and all that. Other time, yeah, I told you about those lows and feeling very guilty about you and troubling your family. I've slashed my wrist, genuinely. I had to kind of go into damage control then. I started hallucinating big time. And they're crazy hallucinations, okay, where you just want to run and jump, which I did, but it was like the first floor, so nothing happened to me.
Right.
But it's, you feel as if people are running after you, someone is trying to kill you. Sometimes you get sensations where someone is burning you alive, and you actually feel that. You literally get 1 or 2 boils on yourself. It has happened with me. Okay, so the mind starts going completely haywire. You go with someone on the road and you see, if someone is, it happened once. Someone was just, between them laughing. They thought they were laughing at me. I went and started thrashing. Stupid stuff happens, right? Very, very bad. And all of it is horrific because when you go back and you come down,
Right.
okay, and you're saying, what the hell is happening?
Right.
So initially, you do more so that you don't come down. But later on, you realize that this is not the solution. You can't always permanently remain high, right?
So I can imagine, because at one point in the initial part of our conversation, you say that you always feel good when you're doing drugs, and then there is this part of you which is self-loathing, which is guilty, which drives you to a point of slashing your wrists and all of that. So that probably, do you think that becomes a vicious cycle between going back to the drugs because you want to escape this, going back to the drugs because does that happen?
That happens. That definitely happens. And add to it, your body starts needing it. That is also what I'm seeing. Okay,
Right.
so for the initial stages, you do have those typical withdrawal symptoms, right? Sometimes it's for a day also, like 12 hours and just literally trembling, or you get crazy migraines which go on for 2-3 days, stuff
Right.
like that, because your body is craving it. So that is where the doctors come in, actually.
Okay. Now that you've told us about your, like these horrific experiences, and then you also told us about you saw positive changes in your personality and all of that. When did that illusion break? When did you say that, what, enough? I don't think the drugs are doing me any good, no matter what I think. When did that whole thing stop?
No, so it is not a cut and dried
Right,
thing.
of course.
It's a series. So as I said, you try, but the whole idea, which one thing I got in my mind, that I have to make the gaps longer. So when you're doing it regularly, you could possibly be having daily. I'm just giving an example, or every alternate day. Then you take a gap because your body cannot manage it. You have to give a gap. It happens by default because you'll just be out somewhere sleeping for 2 days,
Right.
and then eating for 3 days just to recover, and then you start again. When these gaps start increasing, okay, what I consciously decided is I'll increase those gaps. Start with 15 days, then 1 month, then 2 months, that way, and that's how it progresses. Then also you could have a relapse, but once you're used to being without it for some time, you can easily get back. Okay, so it's a journey which needs to start. Okay. So there is a term called cold turkey, okay, for drug addiction, where you're taking for very long, I said, okay, today I stop, it's over from now on.
Huh.
It doesn't happen. It never happens. There's no cold turkey.
Right.
Why is because, as I mentioned, your brain is not damaged, it has changed.
Okay.
Just to the chemical which has gone in.
Hmm.
And now it has to function in sync with that. So if you suddenly take away that chemical, your brain will also react.
Hmm.
Right? And your body will also react. Both will react because you are suddenly doing something different.
Hmm.
So you have to take care of that. And that part needs certain kind of support. And that support, we have medicines for that.
Okay.
And then this is a process which takes 6-8 months. And then, gradually over 6, 8, 10, 12 months, you start getting good.
In the beginning, we also spoke about something which you said that I had induced schizophrenia, which was sort of a turning point in my life. Can you take us through that a little bit?
So induced I don't know if schizophrenia is basically paranoid schizophrenia, where you think that everyone is out for you.
Hmm.
The moment you step out, you think everyone is looking at you, making fun of you.
Hmm.
Think people are whispering and criticizing you, including your parents. Even if no one is talking, you hear voices of regular people. So once I said, why my friends come to my house? And I started fighting with my parents. Did you call my friends to my house to crib about me? I said, no one has entered a house. I said, no, you're lying. Okay. And then I went and smashed something. And that is, so, all that happens. Even when I'm on the road, I once went and picked up fight with some people. So
Right.
even you get hammered sometimes. That happens. But yeah, you basically screw goes loose.
And why was there a turning point? Was there any one incident related to your induced schizophrenia that made you want to quit? That said that I need to start taking measures now.
No, schizophrenia itself is terrible, and what you go through mentally
Hmm.
over a few days itself. So there is no one incident or one thought.
Hmm.
It's just the thought that I have become like this. That was a turning point.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't want to be like this. That's it. I don't want to take psychiatrist medicines for the rest of my life or be in an asylum, even for a short time.
Hmm.
Okay. And let's get back to whatever I need to get back to.
In your book, there is you talk a lot about sex. Sex is in your book an important subject. Why is
Yeah.
it important to talk about drugs? And this has always been happening. We talk about drugs and sex on the same page.
Yeah.
What is the relationship between the two?
Yeah, you heard no famous phrase drug, sex, and rock and roll. So trust me, it pretty much goes hand in hand. That's why I talk a lot about it. So people have all kinds of desires.
Mhm.
A whole lot of them they cannot express. Whole lot are suppressed. A whole lot they can't. And I'm not talking about sexuality also. It could also be the kind of people you like or the kind of experimentation you want to do, whether straight or gay, doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Okay, and all of that. That's one part of it. Second is also linked to a good time. Good times. So good times always mean good food, party, dance, raves, and then sex. Okay,
Right.
so eventually, to a very large extent, and the people I interacted and met were people who were, I would not say troubled, but they had some issues,
Hmm.
not issues, but they could not come out openly and be sexual. Like some people are more sexual.
Hmm.
You can't talk about that to your parents, right? Okay,
Right.
let's say if you're 15, 16, 17, what do you do?
Hmm.
Friends make fun of you.
Hmm.
This is a good outlet, a good way, and you may make like-minded people. As I said, no judgment. I'm the same. You are the same.
Right. Right.
And eventually, that whole cycle is there. You're with like-minded people, and what also happens is that because you have high energy levels, you go without food for 3-4 days,
Hmm.
and you actually don't need to sleep, so you can dance for 48 hours if you want to,
Right.
and do
And
whatever you want. So that's what it is.
and maybe even the inhibitions come down possibly, and you're more open to a sexual experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Have there been any? See, this the reason we need to talk about sex uh, more importantly is because, especially for women drug addicts, I'm not saying that only women are at risk, but they are at a higher risk of any abuse or any sort of negative
Right.
experiences. So what is the relationship between one, education about drugs, and two, education about sex? Why are these two, how do they overlap? Where do they overlap, or do they at all?
they overlap a lot of times. So there is two. So we treat sex and drugs in our society in the same way. It is taboo. It has to be hidden. It does not exist, and you should not have the desire if you can't talk about it. Okay,
Right.
and that's really stupid because we just to on a lighter note, in 1947, our population was 30 crores. Now it's 130. Right?
Right.
So that's all we've been doing as a country, and then to not talk about it is
Right.
really stupid. And when you don't talk about it, that is when you run into trouble. And the first thing you go to is drugs. That is why the overlap is there.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Because everyone says, okay, you can be free. I have certain kind of, let's say someone has certain kind of requirements sexually. Okay, I won't get to, but you've seen 50 Shades of Grey, right? All those kind of
Right.
stuff happens.
Right.
So even if someone is okay with sex and someone knows and a girlfriend, boyfriend, now this aspect is taboo. And it's okay. So now what do? Right. So eventually, okay, you go and have some drugs, then you'll be fine. You want that boy, you will get that. But don't talk about it. If you don't talk about it, you'll jump into drugs. Clear. 80% of cases are all that, which I've come across.
And is there any difference? Of course, I'm sure there's a sort of a societal difference, but is it different for somebody who's a heterosexual or somebody who's homosexual? Does the journey of an addict change with your sexuality?
No difference at all. It's the same.
It's the same. And uh, is the societal pressure higher for somebody who is homosexual? I would possibly assume that it is harder for somebody who's homosexual. The
Uh,
societal pressures, I mean.
yeah, but I think those pressures are going away now. And a
Okay.
lot of it is our own assumptions and misunderstandings.
Right.
That my friends or my parents will think I'm bad or won't accept me and all that, which was true 30 years back, maybe for sure. I don't think it's the case now,
Okay.
at least in the kind of metros we are staying in.
Right. Right. So it is more widely accepted today. So that's a good
It's
thing, isn't it?
quite
That's a
like,
very good
there's
thing.
something I just went and told my parents, like upfront, one time. And they were like, okay, nothing, no reaction, no. They're not like wow or anything, but they are not even no negative. I said, it's fine, just be careful, that's all, tata. And I was like, wow, why was I, hooked up for like 15, 20 years not talking about it?
So did you tell them that you were gay first, or did you tell them that you were an addict first? Which came first?
No, I think it was that one session. And one fine day I walked in. I think it was 10 o'clock in the night. And I have
Right.
to take something with you. I'm in trouble. I'm being suicidal. I'm into guys and I'm doing drugs with time.
So explain that scenario to us. What was your parents' reaction? What were your emotions like? The reason I'm asking this question is there is a lot of fear in admitting to parents, and they are our biggest support system, whether we like to believe it or not. They are our biggest support system. Any amount of friends who supporting you, any amount of peers, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So tell us how your experience was when you told your parents all of these things at once.
Nothing. It was, they could not process it at first. They actually told me, you go to sleep, we'll go to sleep. Let's talk about it tomorrow or after a couple of days. Because the moment I said I'm to drugs and I was, maybe, you are high, I said no. When I went to them, I was not high, but they still said you just chill. And then yes, we just had a quick conversation, half an hour. I said, so what's wrong with that? That's all they said. And they said, and the only thing that is for the gay part. There's nothing wrong with that. Even though we don't agree with it, but we also know, we read, we do everything, so we understand that it is nature. So there's nothing wrong. And coming out about drugs was much more painful for them. But I got only one thing from mom. Is that, what she said? Only one thing. She said, I'm very proud of you. That's all.
Okay.
I know because you've come and told us,
Right.
you will now manage it. You don't need us. And they both heard me. That's all.
Right. I know. You see, that's what we're trying to do with, Beautiful Mind or anything we do with Hoopsters is that so many times children are so scared of how their parents would react. It is the one thing that could probably save their lives sometimes.
Completely.
So, what do you advise parents? See, some of them are not educated enough to react in the right way. Some of them have their own upbringing and things like that prevent them from understanding what the child is going through. So what do you suggest parents do when they receive shocking news like this? What is the best way to handle it?
Okay, the first thing is not to react at all,
Hmm.
because especially when you talk about drugs or maybe sexuality or a combination of the two, whether you're straight or whatever, is don't express that shock or something negative. Sometimes it happens involuntarily. It's not that they mean it.
Right.
That shocks the other person more, your kid.
Hmm.
And they may think, oh my God, why did I say it? And they'll probably go and go more bonkers
Right.
or more drugs. So even if you can't react, you just, like my parents were neutral. They couldn't process it. And I could make out they couldn't process it. But
Hmm.
rather than showing me away or shunning me away and, oh my God, and what has happened, and so from such a nice family, and you know, our name has gone down the drain and all that, no drama. Just
Hmm.
make it zero drama, neutral, cut and dry, no problem. Let's talk about it. And just listen. Whenever you counter, you compound the problem. So for parents, never counter while this is going. Just listen. If you don't know, then say, I'll get back to you
Hmm. Hmm.
in a different thing. Let's talk later. And take that one day to do their research, to professionals or whatever it is that they need to do.
Right.
Because when you counter the person, it becomes worse. Just listen and say it's all fine. Don't worry. Just tell them, do you want tea? Do you want sleep? That's all. Completely neutral. And that neutrality works very well.
And for
It works
someone
very well.
who's watching right now, who's probably thinking about telling their parents that, I am an addict, I really need help, or I am gay, or anything that they want, some big revelation that they want to, or I want to become an actor or something, some big
Yeah,
revelation.
yeah, well, that's a big management.
If they're having some big revelation to their parents that could come as a shock, what is the
Yeah.
best way to approach that?
The best way to approach is to be not throw hints. I think people make that mistake. You and I started giving hints, and we expect people to pick up those hints, especially if they are your closest friends or parents and all. Because it doesn't work that way. No one
Right.
assumes anything, and even you don't assume it.
Correct.
Okay. Just go and say it without any, again, same thing. Just say that this is it. It has been happening. There is, and of course, take some nice time out, half an hour, 1 hour, where everyone is quiet and not rushing around their duties or jobs or whatever it is. And just talk it out. And saying this is there. And if there is something where help is required, you say you need help. If it
Mhm.
is just a one-way communication, which is an information, say I'm just giving this information. Is there anything you would like to tell me or talk to me about? So keep that channel open. It should always end with me. Is there anything else you want to say to me? And that works very well, which I found.
And were
But don't
you
beat around the bush.
right?
Just say that.
And were you at some point prepared for your parents? See, because you're also much older, and you probably it's different for somebody who's older and somebody who's probably 18 or 19. Were you prepared for your parents not accepting these two things and saying, that's it, we're cutting all ties? Were you also prepared for that at some point?
I was no, I was not prepared for that at all. But I was confident it would not happen.
Right.
Okay, but I was prepared for that, and I had made arrangements in a sense. Okay, saying worst case, at least for some time, because parents eventually come around, and some such thing happens. It's not
Right.
like a forever thing. Okay,
Okay.
but yes, I had done my work. I had spoken with a couple of friends, saying, if 2-3 months, if you can
If, it,
keep me,
if they throw me out, I'll come
don't
to you.
all of that.
Right. So
Yeah,
that's what
till
that's
things
what,
cooled.
that's what is
So yeah, all
important.
that I had done.
For them to understand that maybe initially the backlash will be harsh, or they will be possibly little bit in denial and a little angry as well. But I think parents do come around, so it's a good idea to talk to them if you're thinking about talking to them. Is that right?
They will be angry, and that anger comes out of love. Okay,
Right.
I don't think it's harsh at all.
Hmm.
Even a dad or mom will just scream at you. They will scream at you, but the intention is not to put you down or throw you out at all. So I'll just give you a small example, two examples.
Mhm.
I won't take names, but I know someone, a girl, and straight, and 13, 14, she started. 16 or 17, she went and told her parents. And they said fine, and they took help, and they went through this whole cycle 1 year and rehab and everything. She's completely fine now. She's in her 20s
Hmm.
and doing extremely well with life. Also, I found that when I was visiting psychiatrists and some of the better ones, one of the best
Hmm.
ones, in fact, And I would see this whole line of people. And then I would just start talking because you have to sit 2 hours waiting, for these
Correct.
medical professionals for your turn. And 80%, close to 80% were issues related to drugs or related to depression and teenage suicide tendencies.
Okay.
And I would speak to all these people, and they were, trust me, middle class. They were even people from slums. So now that awareness is happening, and it was not awareness. It said ऐसा सब हमने सुना है, लेकिन जो भी है मेरा बच्चा है तो ध्यान तो रखना है, तो हम ढूंढ के आए डॉक्टर,
Wow, lovely.
you know,
That's amazing, isn't
और
it?
हम पैसा खर्च कर रहे हैं.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
I
Right.
don't think parents will ever give up on their kids, whether you're uneducated, educated.
True. True. And there is one very important uh, subject that we need to talk about, I think, the legal aspects of drug use. We have tried to
Yeah.
ban it, we have tried to get people to stop using it, try to put users into jail, all of that, but somehow it doesn't seem to work. It just doesn't seem to work. And
The problem.
tell us what your thoughts are about that.
Okay, so our society is a little wonky that way, right? You should never penalize the victim. That is a simple thing,
Right.
right? If I hit you for whatever reason, okay, and you actually get injured, what the law says is, I'm correlating with drugs, that because possibly you irritated me, therefore I hit you, and therefore I should put you in jail and not me.
Right. Right.
That is what it is. I should be the one in jail because I hit you. That is not what is not happening. What they are saying is that if I am a user, I should be put in jail, but the person selling should not be in jail. Okay. On paper, everything is there. So, drug usage for personal use, how can it be a criminal offense? It's like just saying that if I'm gay, which was till now, it's a crime and I can be jailed. I've got into drugs. This research showing that you are changed, you get damaged psychologically, physiologically, mentally. You are anywhere, your life is in an upheaval. You will probably be having issues at home. There are fights happening. So the guy is already, or girl is gone, big time. Now you're saying I'll put them in jail.
Right.
Okay, I think it's completely stupid. So usage should be completely decriminalized, but not selling. So when we say, then people go, oh, hey, you're saying legalize drugs. It's not called legalizing drugs. Because
Right.
what is happening is, because it is still criminal, people are not coming out who want to come out. Okay, so of course I had this circle at that time. They're all on their way now and they've come out of it, thankfully. But they were refused to. And when I came out and I told them, I said, I'm more than happy to go to any police station, walk in. When I was doing, take a test and say, look, I'm doing it. What do you want to do with me? And let's fight it out. Okay, you have to take that stand.
Right. Right.
Okay. And a couple of people interacted with cops, and one of the incidents I told you, they said, I said, I am high. And then they said, what? So I said, yeah. I said, I'm sure you have something in your cupboard, because all cops do keep something in every police station across the country. So they were like, okay. So nothing happens, but yeah, people who don't know, who come across as scared, get exploited, get blackmailed, not even by police, but by other people. Like if someone knows that I am taking, I'll go and tell the police.
Right.
So I think it's stupid, and I believe there are a bunch of lawyers and legal experts and past justices who formed a panel and are working on lobbying with the government to decriminalize usage.
Right.
Selling will be a crime, okay, so that people come out. Otherwise, you can't help them.
True.
People are scared.
That is true. And so how should we possibly change the dialogue? See, when I was in school, there's always seminars, and even today I'm sure school kids have seminars about say no to drugs, and don't take drugs will kill you. These, and there are movies made about it.
Correct.
This is being done, but we're still seeing like this rampant drug usage, and we're seeing it increase exponentially in the current generation especially. So what should the dialogue ideally be?
Okay, there are two core root issues which are there. One is drugs is as much a demand problem as a supply problem. It is not just about pushing drugs onto people, right? There are a whole lot of pressures and issues which people have, if not addressed, And as I said, it will obviously be the younger crowd because the younger crowd is more sensitive, right?
Right.
We over time, get used to our 10 years of work, and of course, I'm not with my friends. Abhi shaadi hogi, bachche hue, abhi kya? You're set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
and you learn to ignore so many things.
Hmm.
You become a little thick-skinned, to put it
Correct. Correct.
mildly.
Correct.
But it's not the case with the youths and the
Hmm.
teens.
Hmm.
Okay. So we don't have channels for them to speak up about. It could be any issues, not just drugs or sexuality, anything which they are troubled about.
Hmm.
There needs to be forums where they can express themselves, maybe get some counseling if required,
Hmm.
maybe just get a conversation. Sometimes you just need that, and someone has
Right.
heard you out. That's all
Right.
it is. And once that happens, why would you want to go and do drugs? It won't happen. That's
Right.
one part of it. And the other part why it's rampant is being pushed aggressively also. As I told you, some of the ways it's happening.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Today, where you go, what gets into your even soft drink, okay, you wouldn't know, and it could be anyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's both. So the authorities need to not turn a blind eye, because as you are aware, all this cannot happen without political patronage, right, in a very large way.
Right.
And the other point is communication, communication, communication. And most of that open channel should happen at a school level. I think I've met teachers and all who are so scared and inhibited about this. And they're like, oh my God, you're going to tell our children this? And so I'm not going to tell them to have, I'm going to tell them why it is bad. And if there is an issue, they should be able to speak about it.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I think the biggest channel we should be addressing now is school principals, and more than principals, the school trustees and authorities. I did this something similar, and 10 schools wanted to, and 10 schools,
Hmm.
and middle level schools in terms of the finance, the profile, economic profile. And they were like, Karna, and then suddenly all the trustees and all banged on and said, what are you doing? And some principal, two of them called me. I was like, "Oh, sorry, we can't because, I think it's your school, your kids, but you know how it is. नहीं ऐसी बात हमारी स्कूल में नहीं करते हैं.
But what
So
were
I
they
think that
opposed to?
awareness has
Were they opposed to hearing your accounts? Was that what they were opposed to? Because telling children not to
to
take
opposed
drugs.
to talk about it. They're just supposed to talking about it. They're
Wow.
just supposed to opposed to bringing it up, saying how all those nice one day half day things they are fine. Put posters, like
Hmm.
I'm a Rotarian, but I'm just saying a Rotary club or some other club will come. Ban drugs, say no to drugs, do one rally with some flags for 15 minutes. All that is fine, but a serious conversation, if you say you want to have, and get them to ask me questions.
It's 6 o'clock.
15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. Sorry, no, we cannot.
Okay.
Okay. And that is also the attitude of most of it anyway was sold outside school. So I don't know if you're aware, the latest one is a pen, right? You have those felt pens and all in the past, those gel pens, sorry.
Uh-huh.
Now there are certain kind of gel pens available now. Okay, different weird brands or unbranded. You know what to buy. Those 20 rupee ones. Inside that ink, they put drugs. So every time you write and you do this, and it doesn't come, you keep doing this. So they keep doing this. You think they picked up a pen which is dry, but it's not a
Wow.
pen which is dry, which is a drug pen.
So basically, awareness has to be at so many levels today. It's not just
It's
that
not
that picture of an injection and that like having a joint. That is all. I think that's very.
all that is anyway there, and movies
Yeah,
have done to death all of that, right? All the English and Hindi movies. But all this, a lot of new different things are happening.
yeah. Who would think
And
that eating a fruit or like using a pen could be a gateway? Who would think that?
I got 13, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and a lot of silly things also happen. Like, and why I'm saying this conversation is important is, as you mentioned, that especially women could get into trouble, girls could get into more trouble, and approaching me and saying,
Right.
we really like to sleep with you, straight open.
Right.
Okay, but of course, even though I was high, I was very clear. I had certain boundaries, and but there are people who are into pedophilia and all that. You never know what happens, and then movies get made and get blackmailed, and all of that.
Right. So there's a really dark side.
Very dark side to this.
Very
all.
dark side, right?
Especially when you are vulnerable at that age, and imagine you can't speak to your parents. I've come across. I won't mention name, one or two schools where someone went and spoke in the school. They said, "We'll expel you." Okay, so so I mean that's so silly.
Right. Is there any such dark incident that you can tell us about? The idea is to possibly put some
I've got many dark instances. I got so used to them now.
Wow.
I have, I've seen my blue films online, which I didn't know I'd done.
Okay.
I've got blackmailed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, how much more dark can it get?
And what's the
And
way out of that? How did you like
so
make it?
initially, you do get into, fall in, whatever and all. But at the end of the day, I was like, chuck it, yeah, whatever has happened, happened. Why dig a deeper hole?
Correct.
So
Correct.
if someone says, okay, I've seen a certain kind of some 50 Shades Grey kind of porn of yours online, and I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll tell that one. Initially, you will get very hassled and worried. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are some pics or videos of you I've got where you are high, and you can make out you're high. So you go to the police. So finally, I was like, okay, go.
Yeah. Right.
Then I'll see what I do. So you have to reason it out a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are minor repercussions there, but yeah, whatever you may say, whatever the reason, whatever the underlying issue, non-issue, you are the one who has taken the decision to take it the first time and the second time. Correct?
Correct. Correct.
It's your decision, your consequences. That's all.
And in your interactions with youngsters, like you have also met schools and you're part of Rotary as well. In your interactions with youngsters, what are some common questions they ask you about drugs, or do you notice any sort of trend related to drugs amongst youngsters?
Okay, so mostly the youngsters, the drugs they are taking is more, much more to kind of enjoy, to party, basically.
Hmm.
Okay, so these days you have a lot of these house parties. People hire bungalows and go. Now you have these 15, 16-year-olds, taking off in the family car, 8, 10 of them.
Right.
They've got good music lined up and whatever. So it has all gone into that
Okay.
fun kind of phase. Also, why I found this is because they are hyper stressed. Today, you are well aware they have 6-day weeks now.
Right.
Okay, I've never in school in my life gone to school on a Saturday, right? But they are doing this, and then after 7, they have some classes, and someone is learning something and doing something. I don't know, whatever. So they're completely gone
Right. Right. So
in that sense. So that is, I think that pressure is there, and to relieve that pressure,
correct. That is absolutely true. I think.
and they do ask. And one thing they definitely ask is, are there different types of drugs for different purposes?
Okay.
And then very like, okay, will this help me study better? Will this make me have more fun?
Okay. Okay.
All
Okay.
of
So
that.
they
So
already.
there are different types,
Right. Right.
different reasons, and how is easy to get them and all. I said, look, I'm not going to tell you how to get them or where to get them. So, but yeah,
That is sort of scary, isn't it? They already have something to blame. Like I had too much exam stress, so I took it. So I had so much stress at home, so I took this. That is sort of scary to think that they've already found their, what do you call that? Like a blame point.
no, it's not a blame point. I have a slightly differing view.
Uh-huh.
Whenever you are hyper stressed for long periods of time,
Mm-hmm.
in general, about whatever it could be, and at
Mm-hmm.
any age group, you're always seeking for certain solutions or
Mm-hmm.
getaways. And for everyone, the solution is different.
Right.
Drugs is an easy solution.
Right. Hmm.
If you offer them something else, at that age, they will take it. But who's bothered to even speak with them?
Correct.
We are
Correct.
assuming that they're hyper stressed. Maybe they're not stressed at all. Maybe they're enjoying that. Maybe
Hmm.
there is something else bothering. I don't know. But I'm
Right.
assuming because they are working a lot. So he's even bothered on a regular basis, interacting and finding out what it is that they want or what is it that they are thinking.
Hmm. Hmm.
And how do you plug that? So even if someone says, I'm a party animal, I want to party all the time. Okay, can you create a mechanism where they can party all the time but without drugs? It's very possible, right? Can you
Right.
put them, in a line which is event management so that they're always in parties,
Right. Okay. Right.
right?
So
You need to channelize
analyze it
what
properly.
you want to do. That's what I mean. And
Right.
that conversation is not happening.
That is such a good point. I mean, everything that you want to do, be partying. There's certain personalities that you can actually,
Yeah.
you can actually
Or is a broody intellectual type, and oh, why is this world like this? We'll take to drugs, as I told you before. Just put them on a research project. A whole day they'll be there going through some
Yeah.
tons of research, and they won't have time to. And they're contributing. So
Right.
we
So
still have to find out these mechanisms.
it totally boils down to communication, right? As in, there's nothing better than understanding children. And schools, I think schools and parents, this is what they need to look out for, possibly. What is happening to a child as they grow up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's what they need to start looking out for, and we can. The hope is that tomorrow we can channelize it, like you said, in a better way.
Correct.
There's one very interesting quote in your book. I'm quoting your book a lot because I found it so interesting. It was a very nice, differently written account of a drug addict. There was so much humor in it, and there was so much. It was so tongue in cheek. I really loved it. So there's one thing that you say, that boredom is the biggest stressor and cause for depression. Do you think that despite so much activities for the day and being so packed, do you think our generation is actually quite bored?
Yeah, completely.
And why do you say that?
Uh, just activities which you are supposed to do or meant to do or forced to do, whichever way you look at it. Boredom is a state of mind.
Hmm.
I could be forced to go to school every day and be bored of school.
Right.
So I could be with 10 people and be always bored. Or I could always be alone and never be bored. Right?
Correct.
I feel more and more people these days use the word bored or tired of the same thing over and over and over all the time.
Hmm.
Whether it's school, whether it's colleges, whether it's our lives.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about routine. Routine
Correct.
is a different thing. Getting up at one time and all, that is not boredom, getting tired.
Hmm.
It's the same thing, and to what end
Correct.
eventually. So when that thought process sets in, so that is boredom, if you ask me. Or how is this going to help? Or I do something and nothing is going to happen. Or there's actually so much to do that it's as good as nothing to do. Sometimes you are like all over all the time for 3 months in a row, and then
Correct.
like I'm bored. I do not do anything.
That's true. I think you sort of like push them to a burnout, possibly. And
Yeah.
now there's one more part of your book which says, I learned to skip the recovery process totally through comics like Asterix, books, and serials.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that. Tell us about how these things, how they kept you from skipping the recovery phase. What do you mean by that?
Recovery means all this going to rehab and having a 2 year long process and doing some more crazy things before you stabilize.
Right.
So I won. So there and researching and writing and all of that. So I said, let me get back to what I liked when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love Asterix, and I keep reading them even now. So I just got a whole bunch of them. I always keep some of these books with me around. There's some 40 or 50 of them, and just keep reading them, and more comics and other books and all. So it just kept me Sunday. It took me to another different world. It took me to when I was really young, and some fun stuff, funny stuff, which was not linked to what was happening around me.
Hmm.
So that was so you'll have your own solution. Someone will be reading, someone will be in the creative space.
Hmm.
Someone would love playing instruments, whatever it is. So it's just finding that one thing. But yeah, humor does, and I love some of those old Hindi movies which I can watch all over again, like
Right.
Angur and
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
all of that.
So when you say I learned to skip the recovering phase, does it mean that your actual recovery was different from what we read about, or was it?
It's almost the same. It's just that the path is a little different because even I did not even complete my medication course after 6-7 months down the line.
Hmm.
The first time I walked in, the doctor told me the very fact that you are there, and the way I spoke to him, he said that you can maybe make it on your own. But he
Hmm.
said I need stuff, so I'll give you a course. Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I did that. And 6 months down the line, I went to him and he said, "Do you really need it?" And I said,
Hmm.
"I didn't think so." So he said, "Stop it. We walk out." So I skipped that one entire cycle.
Right. Right. And how important is counseling during the recovery phase and after it? Is it also important after you have sort of been clean for a while?
I never went into counseling.
Okay.
Just took medication, which is like so you have these well-defined protocols now for medicines. different kinds of drugs, for alcohol, for tobacco, and actually make you not want it or wean you off gradually.
Okay.
Okay, and the challenge is after you stop them, after some time, you may start getting those cravings, but that's a different story. So once you go through that, and counseling is a big challenge in India. There are very few good counselors. It's not even about qualification. I think the best counselor you can ever find are either a very close sibling, parents, or a very good friend. I don't think anyone can be a counselor or should be a counselor if you're into drugs.
Okay.
Okay, because once they are aware and they know, because they know your moods, they know your mood swings, they know what is going wrong. Like in between, my mom could always make out. She would harass me to death. I love cooking. Okay, so uh, harass me to. I want to eat this. I want to eat that. And she's very little. And said, "Why are you after my life?" He said, "I get the feeling that you're slipping again, mentally. That's over. So come chat with me. And dad will come sit and talk with me. That's it. Counseling is over. Counseling is no big deal. What does a
Right.
counselor do? Talk with you, right?
Right. Right.
Unfortunately, people who counsel either say nothing or they start giving advice, which is even more counterproductive.
Okay. So do you believe that what kind of help should somebody seek? What kind of professional help should somebody seek when they want to stop using drugs?
There are two things which would go very well. One is a good psychiatrist who understands medicine protocol. There are
Okay.
very few in India right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
This particular thing. And the other one is, which is very rare over here, but like how you have Alcoholics Anonymous,
Hmm.
a forum of like-minded people. They could be taking now, they could not be taking now, at least online, if nothing else, to help. So that also helped me a lot. So in the same way, you have party, international online party places. I don't know if you're aware, but all that happens. Yeah, it does happen. So there are online drug parties also which happen, like normal parties. Okay. Similarly, there are forums which are there, which are drug users forums or former addict forums, and they and actually encourage you and push you. So one person actually pushed me. He became a friend. He was 14 years old from I think Sweden or somewhere. I think no, you don't look the type like an addict and all. He said just get out of it. So I said,
Right.
why are you doing it? He said because I'm young. You're such an old man. You're not supposed to do it. And I kept egging and egging and egging and needling, and all this helps you. So,
Right.
so all these forums help because then it's like a group setting. You talk about your experiences, and someone cries and someone laughs, and all that. Basically, you just need to feel involved. And one thing which was extremely well, if you want to get out of it, and these are global experiments done with 100% success, if you reintegrate them properly into society and give them work, okay, get out and never come back. You will
Correct.
stop. Yeah. So these kind of mechanisms do not exist here right now, and they need to come out. So if you prioritize, basically you have to remain occupied throughout with work and activity, feel socially useful, okay,
Okay.
and then you're sorted.
Like you said, for there's a big sort of a, what do you call it? There people are apprehensive about hiring somebody who's a recovering addict or who could possibly still be using and is trying to get out of it, because people believe that drug addicts can't take on responsibility. They're not able to show up on time or work in a professional environment. How true is that? And if that is true, then how can you engage them in a professional setup?
Okay, the first thing is there are a whole lot of them already there, and you don't know about them. If you're hiring drug addicts, go into every corporate, even in India, and you'll find a whole lot of them.
Okay.
No, it's true. And trust me, it's not just the IT sector. IT sector has got a bad name,
Right.
unfortunately, but it's there in very traditional sectors also. There's also a trend internationally where weekend parties, including for professional corporates and senior management, does not happen unless you have cocaine and heroin in the party.
Okay.
Okay? All trends and everything has changed. So it's drugs are what alcohol was 15 years back. You know, right? And that shift has happened, or happening rather. So I don't think we should even be segregating drug and non-drug users and all of that. But these are coming back to these apprehensions. If someone is aware and clear, then there is not a problem at all. Okay. The problem happens when there is no clarity with that drug user. So, for
Correct.
example, I'll give you, I was a part of these forums, and there was a user. He was 60, with a perfectly steady, excellent job, not just a single day at work, and consecutive for years in a row, best, annual performance awards in the US, the
Hmm.
US based guy. He was one of the finest truck mechanics.
Hmm.
He's a truck mechanic forever.
Right. Right.
He said, I started using when I was 18. He's
Wow.
60. He said, now I got so used to it that every day morning I take my one shot, and that's like how you have breakfast and coffee, and that's my life. So, and works out and everything. So you get so many such instances all over. There are people who said it's fine, okay, I have a 3-day holiday. Now they've learned you to not go overboard. So you go party 2 days, come back to work Monday.
Right.
You never get to know. So the idea is to give an opportunity. That's about it. There
Correct.
is very see then that happens once you actually started that process.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
can't just someone pick up who's in that most terrible state and okay, give him a job.
Correct.
That obviously is not going to work.
Correct.
But they've gone through some level of medication, some level of chatting, counseling, rehab, or whatever it is, and they look fine. That is when the reintegration starts happening. And
Correct.
again, there is a well-defined process for that, which is usually successful in places like Portugal, uh,
Okay.
yeah, Norway, Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
UK has started an interesting experiment now because
Hmm.
drugs cannot be just stopped. They have formed a new cell which is hugely successful, where any regular drug user who are into intravenous drugs and
Hmm.
cocaine and high-end ones, the heroin and all,
Hmm.
actually you can call the police and say, I'm craving.
Wow.
Someone comes to you, paramedics, in an unmarked car, actually administers that shot to you so that you don't go and do stupid things outside and damage yourself. Put you under observation, take you into counseling, and they make sure that your gap which you're using keeps increasing, and there is a database of that, and there is a follow-up. They keep asking how are you,
Wow.
and they found people started getting out of already started getting out of it.
I'm
Can you
sure.
imagine in India you call a local police station and say,
Oh God,
come
no.
in, give me a drug injection.
No way, no way. Like even if we are just partying with, I don't know, Coca-Cola and you're making some noise, you're in trouble. You know,
You're in
forget,
trouble.
forget,
So many
forget
of these
drugs.
research mechanisms are happening which work. And I think, as you rightly said, if parents and teachers are not willing to accept it, this is of a
Yeah,
stage 2 or 3 or 4.
yeah, yeah, right. That is true. So I think acceptance from the society or from people around us is a
People
huge,
around us is crucial.
yeah, it is a huge role.
That's
Right.
it. Parents, you're sorted. You don't have to care about anyone else. Okay.
That is
And
true.
to some extent, your teachers or maybe some formal mechanism where they all have counselors now, but you should not have just a counselor. You should have an expert on drugs.
Right.
Expert in
Right.
terms of information, who's non-judgmental. You can talk. Maybe use a third person approach. My friend does this and all, but you get to know. Uh, then the right kind of conversation begins without any stigma associated with it.
I think I wish there is something that happens in our country as well. We can actually call and seek help, like you said. Today there are helplines, like you call if you want to quit smoking. You
Smoking.
have a helpline. You have a helpline, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if it's actually helped. If it has helped, then something like this for serious drug users, I think it would be a revolution.
It's a boon. It will be a boon.
It would be a revolution for our country, and
And
hope,
again, so long as you have to take care, of the database and
right.
it gets leaked and not be misused.
Correct.
Uh,
It's a whole process, and
that.
hopefully we get there someday. That is the
The
hope.
whole process is important more than the ideas.
Yeah. Now there is, it is actually, we've seen this in films. We've seen this in terms of your withdrawal symptoms and all of that. That recovery is extremely hard. Like the withdrawal symptoms are very hard. And there is one part again in your book where you say that they, a drug addict is always thinking of suicide
Yep. So at some stage,
at
it's
some stage or the other, right?
always.
And one reason you say is the thrill seeking, because I think they get used to it, hiding from everybody, and
Yeah.
I think sort of get used to that thrill, that adrenaline rush. That is one thing. And second thing you say is that they feel so hopeless that they'd rather die. You know, why is it that somebody would rather kill themselves than actually go ahead and seek help?
Uh, Again, the same thing. There's so much of stigma associated with the whole thing, and also whether you've done it the first time or multiple times. That is something you're not supposed to do. And a lot of these, there are moral connotations which come in, which are actually killing people. Okay. You know you damaged yourself, right? Physically, mentally,
Correct.
financially, you become antisocial, everything has happened. So anyway, you lost complete hope. Okay. You don't know where to go. There are no channels. Of course, I'm from a similar background like yours maybe, where, we have some education, awareness and all of that. So
Correct.
went around it, did my research and all of that. But imagine for most of the people where this is not possible, which is the case in India.
Correct.
What do you do? And you lost all hope. And then people talk about it. These people are morally corrupt. ये तो ऐसे होते हैं, गंदे लोग हैं. I've heard all this actually.
Correct. Correct. That is true.
And so imagine that not only I am ruined from all fronts of my life, I'm also bad. And I'm also anti-God, anti-religion, anti-society. And it's drilled into my head while I'm under the influence.
Correct.
What is the logical thing? I don't deserve, I'm not part of this world. I don't want to live.
That's the thing, isn't it? There's one part is actually stopping the substance, right? That is one part. And the second part is actually building yourself back, building yourself back from all the, you definitely break down to a large extent once you are at that stage, right? So how do you build yourself back? What is that process like?
Now that I will just attribute to just yourself, actually, to be honest. I don't even call it willpower. It's just that what you do want to do with yourself. And it's as simple as that.
And what did you do for yourself?
I was always a lot into remaining fit and all that for many, many years. I got back into working out, fitness. I started picking up some assignments. I started a blog. I have a startup in the yoga space now, which I picked up post this phase and started working on it. I also do some IT consulting. Basically, I just started working. So let's just work, whatever comes your way. Never mind, I was some ex-profile and head of something 15 years back. Like, check all that. Like, forget your past, it's history, it's gone. What do I want to do now? So you have to rebuild your life from scratch. You have to maybe give up some of your past, however you thought it was. Just look forward to something very different. And therefore, whoever has come out of this actually come out as a little more composed. So even these people I spoke about, like those 14, 15-year-old drug addicts, you speak to them, you'll be flawed completely. They're like, where are these people?
I think it's the life experience.
Because you've gone through so much.
Correct.
You understood life much better. You know what is important, what is not important. So you learn to sift out the unimportant stuff from your life, whatever it is for you. I mean, it's not the same for everyone.
Correct. So I would like to think that today you're doing your startups and you're doing all these things. You're doing your yoga and everything. I would like to think that life is better today. Is it better today than it was when you were an addict? It's a silly question
My
to
life was
ask.
always good. Let me put it that way.
Sorry.
Because my life was always good. So except for these instances, which used to keep happening intermittently, actually. Apart from that, I never really had an issue. Okay.
Correct.
So yeah, of course, the psychiatrist will be able to psychoanalyze better why, then what, and why it is now and all. I don't get into all that.
Right.
Like if someone has diagnosed me and say, okay, you take medicine even today, I'll take it. I don't have a problem. But I would not say that. Yeah, I'm happier now than I was when I was going through this phase. Let me put it that way. Especially the down phase and feeling bad about myself phase.
Correct. So this
is not about the high. It is about that down and feeling guilty about yourself phase, which was really terrible.
The reason I'm asking this question is when you talk to anybody who's a recovering addict, definitely there are a lot of horrific incidents that happen while you're going through addiction, all of that. And people do say that I'm much happier today, I'm more composed, but there's still that fear of relapse. They're always, because a drug addict is always called a recovering addict. They're never called a completely recovered addict.
True.
So when you feel happier, when you feel like this is a better life for me, or I'm doing better for myself, why does it relapse happen?
Why does a relapse happen? Again, there are a couple of reasons I can say. One is obviously there is a hardwiring which has happened in your brain, whether you like it or not.
Correct.
It is always there.
Okay.
And the second one is you may just say, okay, now it's been 1 year, let me try. or not necessarily proactively go out and try, but you go to a place where people are having it and say, okay, a little bit, it's okay. Doesn't, and that is again when the relapse starts. Okay, so relapse, if you want to ask me, one is exposure to similar company or surroundings, and second one is overconfidence.
Right.
That I come through it once, I can do it again. Kind of a thing. These are the two reasons. However, if you have a fear of relapse, so relapse will always happen. So this is something you have to take each day. Don't even fear a relapse. Your mind should be, if it happens, let it happen.
Right. So just keep us
It
on.
should not happen.
Right.
Because the more if you're going to drive yourself there, because you're constantly thinking about it. Oh, what if I take it? And then you'll feel like taking.
True. True.
So you just have to be completely, I don't know, ambivalent about the whole thing. हुआ तो हुआ, नहीं हुआ तो ठीक है, और हुआ तो now I'm confident that I'll come over it.
That's interesting. That's important actually, and
that's very important. And someone who relapses, I'll tell you one thing: in most cases, I've interacted with a lot of people. Those relapses are never those like before, like the long drawn out bad relapses. They are just those, try again, get back once in 2 months, get back kind of a thing, and which is good. Basically, you got into a rhythm and a routine.
Correct.
So you're no longer dependent on it, or you are no longer dependent on it as a means to escape your situation. Like
before. So that's sort of hopeful, isn't it? Because people almost sometimes when they go to the low points of addiction, they believe that I will never get out of this. Yeah. Not even if I do, because of this term, where they say that you're always a recovering addict, people sort of tend to believe that, there is no hope for me, and maybe that is why all these suicidal thoughts and the impact it has on somebody's mental health.
Yeah.
I think
at the same time, it would also be wrong to say this is 100% curable and it's all good and hunky dory. Even that is incorrect.
Of course not.
So you have to make them aware that even though we are sensitive, we appreciate that you've gone through a bad patch, but it's still bad. So
right.
You should not take away that part of it.
Absolutely.
Guilty, but next time they do it, yes, you have to make them feel guilty. You have to hit hard.
Correct. That is true. But at least probably somewhere they don't feel hopeless. That at least they take that step forward and say, okay, let me start. Maybe there's hope for me.
Correct.
I hope that people who watch this feel that. So, do you have any closing words? Any tips that you have for somebody who's possibly watching this and is struggling with addiction themselves?
Nothing. Just be extremely confident. There is nothing in life that cannot be managed. As simple as that. People in third stages of cancer manage and live forever. Okay. People who are paraplegic, with maybe neck down also, leading very enriching and wonderful lives. Okay. Yes, this is bad. It's a phase you've gone through. So what big deal? Just get out of it. A lot of times you have to just shake yourself up and saying, okay, no special person. So don't just throw a tantrum in your mind that, this is what happened to me. You're nothing special. There are like thousands like you there and all leading a good life. So it's your choice. You want to do it or you don't want to do it. That's about it. If you want to do it, solutions will always come. You will take the effort to find someone. You will take the effort to speak to people. Something will always happen.
Correct. Just about taking that first step, I think.
Just the first step to acknowledge, yes, fine, it's happened. It should not have happened. It's happened. I want to get out of it. Now what? The moment you ask, I want to get out of it. Now what? That's it. Yes, okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaurang. That was really, we covered some very interesting points today, and hopefully children who are watching, parents who are watching, the idea is to create a supportive system, that
Absolutely.
If we can break the stigma, I think we can really help anybody who's struggling, be it mental health, be it sexuality, be it drug abuse. It is just the taboo that needs to go.
It's one message I want to leave for parents is that very soon, and it's already the trends have started, close to, I think 30% to 40%, 30%, 16 and below, 10 to 16-year children will either be in drugs or alcohol or face challenges of depression, etc. That's what I want to leave you all with. So all the parents who think, "Hamare saath nahi ho sakta, it's not here, or it can't happen in my school or with my kids," it's happening.
Right. And I don't think I should say anything further because that's a very important point. So parents, if you have listened to that, please keep that in mind. Open the conversation.
Absolutely. Or keep just open channels. You may not want to poke them all the time.
Right.
At least they should have the comfort that I can easily go and speak with them. That's all.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you. That was a nice chat.
It was
And
good chatting with you also, Nupur.
thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure. And I hope you have a good evening.
You too, and
Oh,
all.
and I'm an Asterix fan too. Asterix, and
Okay.
we have the whole collection at home.
Oh, okay. Something in common.
Yeah, we have the whole collection at home. So yeah, that is something which I found instantly clicked. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.